Just a test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Have you ever been driving in the comfort of your car and suddenly you feel like your world's about to be turned upside down? Not sure what I'm talking about? You will after this amazing story of Tales from the Shitter with the Spaniard. I'll be right back. One of the many jobs I've held was an office clerk. And one of the duties that came with that job was, going for whatever was needed for the office. In this particular case, my job was to drive from my office, which was in Crown Point, Indiana, over to Chicago, Illinois. Don't ask me why. But we needed coffee, and it was my job to do so. So for this particular story, I call this one The Coffee Run. Now, going for this coffee run was quite I call it an ordeal. Whenever I used to travel, whether it was at least a half hour to an hour drive away, I had an MO of how I started off my day. Normally, I would go to the nearest Mickey D's and I would pick up the usual. That consisted of a sausage McMuffin with egg, and maybe 2 hash browns and a sweet tea to wash it all down. Well, in this particular case, didn't have enough time to stop by at the local McDonald's or any McDonald's for that matter. However, there were some free donuts there. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but I am a cheap ass, man. And when it comes to food, forget about it, man. It's there. If it's free, I'm taking it. So I decided I could save some money and skip the whole McDonald's. I figured I would save some time and skip the whole McDonald's bit. So I loaded up on those donuts. Let me tell you, they were stale as fuck. But you could be surprised what you could do to a donut if you spray it with a little water and throw it in the microwave for a couple seconds. But not only that, the coffee that was there must have been about 2 or 3 days old, but that didn't faze me at all. I'm used to drinking shit. So after I loaded this fat ass with a bunch of donuts and stale coffee, I jumped in the car and on my way to Chicago I went. Well, if you're not familiar with the Chicago traffic, there's a road that's called the Dan Ryan. And when you merge onto it at a certain time, say between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. in the morning, if traffic is backed up already. So I decided to get a little early and get a jump on there. And so right when I got to close to 87th Street on the Dan Ryan, my stomach started making some strange noises. I think noises we are quite familiar with but are afraid to discuss in public. It was more of a growl. My stomach was pissed that I fed it stale donuts and God knows how old coffee. My stomach started cramping. I started sweating profusely. It was about mid-January and I had all the windows down in the car because I was sweating so bad. That's how hot I got. The pain was so excruciating. I was getting close to about 18th Street where I decided I needed to make some drastic measures here and make a decision. We're talking risk management here. I was going through my mind where I could go. I figured I could pull off here and find an alley and put 2 dumpsters together and squat in between them and take care of business that way. Or, I don't know, I was thinking of all kinds of scenarios of where I could relieve myself without getting arrested. I finally got to about 18th Street. That's called the Pilsen area. And luckily for me, I was getting close to going right there in the car. But I saw the Golden Arches. It was a McDonald's. I wasn't there for food. So I pulled into the driveway. Luckily for me, there was a parking spot available. Pulled in, shot out of my car, and started sprinting towards the entrance. For some reason, there were a bunch of kids around, so I plowed my way through them, getting them out of the way so I can get to the entrance. I finally got into the restaurant, made a quick left, and there I saw the corridor to the bathroom. I made a line drive to it. I opened the door, and the worst thing I could ever see in my existence, the stall had 2 feet underneath it. It was occupied. I didn't know what else to do. I had nowhere else to go. I had to go. Finally, with whatever energy I had left, I mustered up the following words and said, "Hey buddy, if you don't get out of there in the next 30 seconds, when you exit that stall, it won't look like the place you first entered." As soon as I said those words, I turned and faced the corner and just held on as tight as I could to keep everything in. I heard the stall open. There was a God. Needless to say, folks, I made it in that stall. I learned a valuable lesson that day. Just because it's free doesn't mean you have to eat it. The other cool thing about that day was it was a good thing that guy understood English. Well, folks, thanks for joining me today on this episode of Tales from the Shitter. Join me next week where I get to humiliate myself just a little bit more for your pleasure. Right here on Tales from the Shitter with the Spaniard. Spaniard out.